all needed to do that, didn't we?
I couldn't help it. I saw that and was like, yeah.
I just shaved, actually. I got a haircut.
Thank you all for being here today. I sincerely appreciate all that everyone in the media is doing in our fight against COVID-19. We also know that as we fight this pandemic, that we are going to continue to update you on our numbers, what we are doing to respond, and I think that's critically important, and I'm glad Dr. Dobbs once again is with us today, and we will certainly continue to talk about COVID-19. But I also want to begin today's briefing by addressing another one of Mississippi's crises. After the election, but before I assumed office, Mississippi was rocked by violent riots in our prison. 5 inmates died violently in a single week, and some escaped in the chaos. It was personally horrifying for me and many others across this state and across this country. I personally visited Parchment and other prisons throughout our system. This put a spotlight on our systemic problems at the Department of Corrections. It was a major national story. I said from the beginning, I have no intention of hiding our problems. I have every intention of fixing our problems. Our prison system is broken, but we are doing everything we can to repair it. First, we closed Unit 29 at Parchment, the most notorious section and ground zero for this specific crisis. We have worked to raise pay for our correctional officers. We've done thorough investigative work to uncover waste and abuse by staff. That work has had an impact. I want to personally thank Commissioner Taylor and others who stepped in the gap to help in that effort. I also want to personally thank Kerry McDonald and Jaworski Mallet, 2 current employees that have really stepped up at the department. They've made a difference. I've also said from the beginning that more than just funding or politics or anything else, Mississippi's prison system had a leadership crisis. In the first few days of my term, I had the opportunity to deliver a State of the State address and lay out a mission for our term. I made a promise that day to the people of Mississippi. Here is exactly what I said. All Mississippians must be able to trust that the people in charge of this system are acting with competence to keep them safe. We must be able to trust that the corrections officers operating in these prisons have the tools that they need to do their jobs and that they are compensated fairly. We must be able to trust that this system shows respect to those who find themselves within it. We must administer justice fairly, respecting the dignity of all within our prison walls. It was a great Christian martyr of the 16th century who saw a group of prisoners headed to the executioner and said, "There, but for the grace of God, go I." We must carry that same spirit of empathy as we embark on this mission. We have asked a trusted, diverse group of experts to conduct a nationwide search, to provide me with a recommendation for a permanent solution to our leadership crisis. 2 gentlemen who are at the table today, Mayor George Flaggs and Judge Sean Tyndall, were there that day. I asked them to lead the search. They went through a rigorous process. There were many voices in the room throughout that process. There were those on the right and those on the left, and there were those in the middle. I gave them a simple task. I simply said, go find me the best possible person to lead the Department of Corrections. Not the best possible person in Jackson, not the best possible person in Mississippi. I asked them to find me the best possible person in America. And I believe in my heart that they have found us the best possible person. And I am honored that Mr. Burl Kane, the former warden of Angola Prison in Louisiana, has agreed to serve as our corrections commissioner. Angola was once known as the bloodiest prison in America. It was racked with violence, and it failed the staff, the inmates, and the citizens who relied on it to provide justice. Then, a man named Burl Kane entered the picture. He brought faith, security, safety, dignity, and pride to the prison. They went from beatings to Bible studies. He transformed America's bloodiest prison into the model of success for the nation. Inmates who were previously on lockdowns for fear of violence were now working productive jobs, handling power tools, and moving freely throughout the grounds. They were able to accomplish this by treating even the most violent criminals as human beings who are capable of reform and deserving of respect. He has brought that success story to the world. He is a nationally cited expert in the conversation around corrections. He has brought faith-based programs to the country. In his job interview with us, he raised the need to treat all prisoners with the dignity and respect that they have earned as men and women created in the image of a loving God. I believe that Burl Kane can bring hope to the inmates that are struggling. Time and time again, that was expressed as a sincere goal. He assures me he will ensure that the integrity of our system is upheld. I believe he will make Mississippi proud. At my inauguration, former Parchman inmate 46857, a man by the name of Eddie Spencer, led our state in prayer. He turned his life around and became a pastor who serves in part by helping Mississippians at risk of succumbing to violence and joining the prison population. He joined me then at the State of the State, where I laid out our vision. He is a powerful testament and example of the mission of my administration, to have a Department of Corrections that actually corrects criminal behavior by leading inmates to a life well lived. I believe that under Burl Kane's leadership, we can have more Eddie Spencers and fewer inmates who return to the system. We can treat all Mississippians with the safety, the dignity, and the pride that they are owed as children of the King and residents of the great state of Mississippi, whether they are incarcerated or not. Our motto is and has been to serve for all Mississippi. I'd ask all of you to lend us whatever trust you can muster, because transformation does take time. But the time for action is now, and we are working tirelessly to address the crisis we face in our state and the crisis we face in our prison system. At this time, I would like to turn it over to a man who needs no introduction in the world of corrections in this country, Mississippi's new Commissioner of Corrections, Burl Kane.
Thank you, Governor, so much, and thank you, Mayor Flagg and Judge Tyndall, for leading the team and to interview me and to select me to recommend to the Governor. And I promise to do a great job to help the Department of Corrections, and to do the four components that's essential to have a good prison. That's good food, good praying, good playing, and good medicine. We're going to have those four components, and that's going to balance it out. And so I look forward to the challenge. I look forward to the job, and to lead Mississippi to have a great system. And I thank you, Governor, for the faith and confidence to appoint me as the Commissioner of Corrections. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I want to give a longtime friend of mine, the mayor of the city of Vicksburg, and someone who worked tirelessly for months. We started out with a large number of applicants. Many of them were very qualified. There were a lot of people that showed interest in the job in Mississippi. We appreciate every single one of them for their application, for working through the process. But I wanted to turn it over to Mayor Flagg as the chairman of that committee.
Well, thank you, Governor. Governor, I would be remiss if I didn't just start by saying thank you for the leadership that you provide as it relates to this COVID virus and what you do for the state of Mississippi. And yes, as longtime friend, I want to say to you, on behalf of the committee that you selected. I was honored to serve as chairman, but it was easy because of the fact of the people you selected to serve with me. Those people were very open and honest, and we've done what you've asked us to do. The process is more fair than it ever seemed. We had a record number of people across this nation that wanted this job. Some people thought that there was other issue why people wouldn't, but I'm telling you, I was overwhelmed with the number of people that wanted this job, and this committee looked at every application and looked at every situation that we had facing us in this crisis or in this situation as it relates to the Department of Correction, and we unanimously came up with the names that we came up with. And on behalf of that committee, Governor, I think you've done a great job in selecting the person. I've had a number of conversations with him. I know of no person at this time that was in that application pool or in this country can do what this man can do if given opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor, for your service to our state, to your service to the city of Vicksburg. For those of you who did not know, Mayor Flaggs was a long-term member of the Mississippi Legislature, served as the chairman of the Corrections Committee in the Mississippi House of Representatives, and certainly was ripe for leading this particular committee. As we went through the process of determining who the best person in America was to serve as the leader of our Department of Corrections, something, as I listened to the meetings, to the comments that kept coming back to me as we look to build out our team, is the leadership qualities in a longtime friend of mine, someone who served in the Mississippi State Senate with me, Senator Sean Tindell. Senator Tindell, and you know, we have a joke over in the legislature, once a senator, always a senator. Senator Tindell, a number of years ago, was tapped to serve on the Mississippi Court of Appeals by then Governor Phil Bryant. He was tapped to lead in that capacity because of his knowledge as a lawyer, his competency. He served in the Senate as the chairman of the Judiciary Division A Committee. He hails from the Mississippi Gulf Coast, from Gulfport. He's a former subcommittee chairman on the Committee of Appropriations in the state Senate, and he certainly stepped up over the last several months in leading and finding Burl Kane to lead our Corrections Commission. And I appreciate his effort. He is a close personal friend of mine. He is a great public servant. He has served from the Mississippi Gulf Coast region as an assistant district attorney. He has represented individuals within the system, and therefore I am absolutely pleased to announce that he has been willing to accept when I asked him if he would serve as the new commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. Now, I want to be clear about a few things. Over the last several months, we have asked Colonel Chris Gillard to step up in his role. I could not be more pleased with his efforts over the last number of months. Every step of the way, every time he has had to step up and answer the call, he and the men and women of the Department of Public Safety and the Mississippi Highway Patrol have done just that. Colonel Gillard is in the room here today. Colonel Gillard, I want to personally thank you for your service to this great state. You represent the Highway Patrol with honor, with respect, and with dignity, and I personally thank you for your service. In addition to that, we also have Lieutenant Colonel Randy Ginn here. Randy has served in that capacity for a number of years, and he also, working with Colonel Gillard over the last several months, has stepped up and made a difference in our state, and I am proud of him. In addition to that, Mr. Pat Cronin has been another person at the Department of Public Safety that has been there, I understand, for almost 40 years, served for many of those years as leading the Mississippi Law Enforcement Training Academy, well respected by people throughout this state. Law enforcement across the state respect him. I want to personally thank Pat Cronin for his effort. But I will tell the people of Mississippi today that I couldn't be more proud that Sean Tindell is willing to step up and answer the call to serve. He is inheriting a group of individuals that care deeply about our state, and I know with his leadership, we will continue to take that department to a new level. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean Tyndall, our new Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety in the state of Mississippi. Sean?
Thank you, Governor. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Governor Reeves for his kind remarks and his faith in me to fulfill his expectations and the obligations required as the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve the state of Mississippi as the next Commissioner. The Department of Public Safety, as you all know, has a storied history of excellence for our state, and I will work tirelessly to maintain and improve that history of excellence. I also look forward to working with the other branches of government to ensure the safety of not only the fine men and women at the department, but also all Mississippians. As with any organization, it takes everyone from top to bottom to develop a culture of excellence. For my part, that includes leading by example and surrounding myself with like-minded individuals who have the desire to serve the people of this great state. In order to achieve the excellence required of us, there can be no room for big egos and grandstanding. It simply will not be tolerated. What will be demanded is servant leadership at all points of contact within the department and a willingness to work together for the greater good of the state of Mississippi. Over my first 90 days of the department, I will do an overall assessment, meeting with all of the troopers, the different divisions within the department, central office leadership, and others to determine what the top priorities are at the department. I also intend to meet with local law enforcement and prosecutors to hear their concerns and gather their input. And of course, immediate priority of mine will be to work on improving the delays and problems we've seen and witnessed with the issuance of driver's license through the department. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to thank my colleagues at the Mississippi Court of Appeals. My law clerks, Lindsay Watkins, Jordan McMichael, and my judicial assistant, Heather Graves, have done an excellent job of helping make me a better judge. And I've learned over the years, whether it be in the Senate, in private practice, as a prosecutor, and now as a judge, that surrounding yourself with hardworking people that demand not only of themselves but of others excellence makes the whole organization work better. At home, I'd like to thank my wife, Claire. She's been a rock for our family, my kids, Sam, JT, Meredith, and Henry. She is the light of my world, and my children are as well, and I look forward to setting a great example for them in this new role. I'm reminded when I look at them the admiration that I saw when my grandfather was alive, Henry Brown. He was a sheriff's deputy in Stone County, Mississippi, and I was always proud of the fact that he served our county as a member of the local law enforcement. And I'd also lastly like to thank my mother, Dora, who has been dealing with the recent passing of my father and is always a constant reminder of me of how important it is to work relentlessly for those around us and our community. Thank you, Governor, and I look forward to doing a good job for you and the people of the state of Mississippi.
Thank you, Sean. Sean has now served in the legislative branch of government, the judicial branch of government, and now he will have the opportunity to lead one of the premier state agencies in the executive branch of government. And I know that he is up to the task, and I look forward to working with him to continue to grow Mississippi. We are proud of the team that I know will protect the people of Mississippi wholeheartedly and capably. As we work to protect the people from the disaster that is COVID-19, we also know that that is not our only threat. We must do our whole job. That's our goal. Of course, that does not mean, as always, updating you on our public health and economic crisis. I will let you know that I do plan to sign the legislature's bill later today and start getting assistance out to our small business owners as quickly as humanly possible. We've been working all the things we need to do to administer it since the concept was introduced. I'm grateful for all of the legislators for their work on this bill. We were in agreement on the vision and on the broad concepts and goals that small businesses across Mississippi that have been hurt the most during this crisis. I've said repeatedly, Wall Street is going to do just fine. We have to focus on Main Street. It took us a few days to review the bill because, as is often the case, it's not perfect. Most legislation is not. It's far better than what came before, and I believe that any problems with compliance with the Treasury guidelines can be and will be addressed. It's mostly technical stuff, and that is the unfortunate reality of having to deal in specifics rather than hypotheticals. We can deal with it administratively. Everyone worked really, really hard on it. They put in long hours into the middle of the night, and I'm very grateful for their efforts. I'm grateful to all of our people across Mississippi who are helping us to safely reopen. Your vigilance is what allows us to get closer and closer to normal day by day. I truly want to thank the people of our state. We have made sacrifices for weeks and months on end. We have to continue to be vigilant. We have to continue to make sacrifices. We have to continue to protect ourselves and our family and our fellow Mississippians. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dobbs, who will give us an update on the public health crisis. Dr. Dobbs?
Thank you, Governor. Quick update today. We are reporting 263 new cases, and sadly, we continue to mount deaths. We have 16 additional deaths that we're reporting today. And again, the vast majority of the deaths that we're seeing are occurring in older individuals. If we look at other metrics, we do continue to see steady declines in the COVID-like illness visits within the ERs, which is a good sign. But if we look at our hospitalization rates, we see relative stability, but we also see some gradual increases in total hospitalized patients with coronavirus and mild increases in the number of patients in the ICU or in the ventilator who have coronavirus. Want to encourage everyone to get tested if they have any symptoms of coronavirus or if they think they might have been exposed. Of course, we have the daily test site with UMC at the Jackson Fairgrounds, and so if you have, please, schedule an appointment if you think you need to be tested. Tomorrow, there will be a testing location drive-through at the Collins County Multi-Purpose Building. I'm going to have the privilege of visiting our team down there tomorrow, so come by and say hello and get tested if you need to get tested. A couple other things. We have been getting a lot of calls from people wanting to help out in the effort, and I'm very excited about that. So if we're recruiting nurses, epidemiologists, and disease investigation specialists, please follow us on social media for the Department of Health, and you can see how to apply. These are going to be full-time jobs, professional positions with training involved. So if you're a nurse or if you're an epidemiologist or if you want to be a disease investigation specialist, which requires at a minimum a bachelor's degree with a science background, please follow us on social media. We're recruiting a team of talented individuals to make sure that we can continue our response. But as we look to the fall and an anticipated surge of disease, we want to have that team bolstered and ready to respond as quickly and as robustly as possible. The last thing I want to say is parents, go ahead and start getting your kids vaccinated. We know that kids are far behind getting back to school. We don't want that to be a problem when they're trying to get back enrolled, depending on kind of how all that rolls out in the fall. Call your pediatrician, call your clinic to see about getting scheduled for your shots. The Department of Health will start ramping up our normal operations in mid-June. We'll be offering our childhood and teen vaccinations through the Department of Health clinics. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dobbs, for your leadership during this crisis. Director Michelle is out and about today, visiting numerous areas, meeting with emergency management coordinators. I gave him the day off from being at the press briefing today so that he can continue to get prepared and make sure our emergency management plan is in effect as we fastly approach hurricane season in Mississippi. So with that, again, thank you to everyone for being here today, and I will turn it over for any questions that you may have. Cordianne?
I wanted to ask Mr. Kane, obviously a nationwide search, you do have that experience that the governor mentioned there. Tell me about, from the outside looking in, what you hope will be some of the first things to tackle or what the priorities need to be.
Well, the priority is stability of the system, and so we'll work on that, but it's a bigger picture. We want to really work on less victims of violent crime, safety in the prison, safety for the staff, and We also want to be very user-friendly to the inmates' families, to when they visit, and we want to have that sort of system here. We want to have moral rehabilitation. Moral people don't commit crime. We're going to really focus on reentry and really skills and trades so that when they are released from prison, they can get a job. We're going to help them find the job. And we're going to work to that, to no end to get there. And we're going to do it most efficiently because we have the greatest resource is the inmates themselves. And we're going to use them to help do this in a cost-efficient manner and to give them work and business and something to do in the prison and keep them busy.
Commissioner Kane, considering that the department historically has been underfunded and most likely will continue to be underfunded based on history, how are you going to balance that with the priorities that you are hoping for?
I've been a prison warden 34 years, and it's always been underfunded. And so what you have to do is have an attitude that we can do this, we're going to say yes more than no, and we're going to find ways to do it, and it's going to be doable. I can assure you that, and the governor's going to provide what's needed for us, and we're going to be as efficient as we can, and we're going to be lean and mean and get it done.
Yeah, I would just like to speak to the funding level, because I think it's important. If you have followed the department, we have put in a new financial officer at the Department of Corrections, a gentleman, Kerry McDonald, who I want to thank him again for his service to our state and particularly to the Department of Corrections. He's done a fantastic job. He recently asked for, and Commissioner Taylor did as well, a $22 million deficit this year at the Department of Corrections. He and I had a great conversation earlier this week, and just so you know, that $22 million deficit, 14 of it is actually for medical expenses that were incurred last year. The previous administration chose to spend $14 million this year on medical expenses that occurred a year ago. In addition to that, the additional $8 million over and above the 14 is actually approximately the same amount that is being spent now that for those inmates that were moved out of Parchman into Tutwiler into that private prison. That had we not had to do that, I think what you would have found is that would have the amount of money that we're spending at corrections this year is approximately what was appropriated during last year's legislative session. Now, we've got some other issues that we've got to deal with. Obviously, we've got to retrofit buildings. We've got to improve some things from a capital expense standpoint. We're also looking at other options for those inmates that were moved out of Unit 29. But I am confident that we will find the resources to do that.
Where's Walnut Grove?
Jack with Clarion Ledger has a question. Jack?
Yeah, I've got a question for Burl. Hey, Burl, I'm looking at a report released about 3 years ago by the legislative auditor in Louisiana that found numerous questionable financial purchases and decisions during your time as warden there, like using public money to buy personal appliances like big screen TVs, having relatives stay in state-owned homes at Angola nearly 200 times, and more. I guess, what did you learn from maybe your time at Angola, especially near the end? As I'm sure you know, Mississippi has had its own issues with Chris Epps in financial misdealings. What can you say to the people of Mississippi to just put them at ease that, you know, you're going to be a good steward and watchdog of our tax money?
I think what's important is that those allegations were unfounded, that there was no crimes committed, and so what we have to do is avoid the hint of impropriety. We will continue to do that, and I've done that throughout my career. And you're going to get investigations. It's going to happen. We need that. That's good, but it was unfounded as far as any wrongdoing, any ethics violations, or what have you.
Commissioner, how long will it be before you actually put in a new staff for yourself, or are you going to go with the existing staff?
Excuse me.
Your own staff at the Department of Corrections, the people that you're going to have working with you, working on budget, working on the prisons, working on prisoners. I'm assuming that with every new administration, you bring in new people. How long before you have your new team in place, or are you going to use the existing?
Well, I think you have a lot of good people here in the Mississippi Department of Corrections, and I'm new. This is my first day, and so I can't really address that question now because I haven't even been in the door, don't know where the building is. So we got to hold up on that.
Hugh Keaton, WLOX has a question.
Good.
Hugh?
Hey, this is a question for the governor and for Sean. First of all, for the governor, we're talking about public safety today with the new commissioner. How long do you think it'll be until DMVs are open? And then a question for Sean, if you can outline some top priorities for the department going forward to streamline the DMVs, make them a little easier to access, and because there had been talk of moving DMVs to under the Secretary of State's office.
Well, thank you for that question. We are working with the health department right now to determine what guidelines need to be put in place to allow all state offices, including DMV. That's a very important state office, obviously, that is open to the public. But right now, virtually all state offices that are open to the public have been closed because we didn't believe that it was in the best interest of safety for the people of our state. We do believe that we are close to being able to issue guidelines to get them back open. Things such as having appointments, keeping people in their cars so that they're not gathering inside in large groups in these relatively small buildings, things such as that. I'm confident that we'll be able to get those open as quickly as possible. But let's not kid ourselves. You know, I've sat here for weeks and weeks on end, and I've looked in this camera and I've told the truth to the people of Mississippi. The challenges that we have at our Department of Motor Vehicles, as well as the challenge we have at other agencies with respect to making sure that we are business friendly, are going to be compounded by the fact that we have COVID-19. It's the fact that we've had a number of weeks where we're not being able to issue those licenses is certainly going to be challenging. It's going to create a challenge. You're going to have to work with us. I know it's challenging. I know it's not going to be the easiest thing to do, but we are committed to getting it done in a way that is in the best interest of the citizens of our state. As I said about corrections, I'll say it about every other agency that reports to the governor. We're not here to hide our problems. We're here to fix our problems. I believe that's my job and my responsibility, and I'm committed to do it. Sean?
Thank you, Governor. Hugh, you know, obviously one of the priorities, and you brought it up, and I think I mentioned it originally, is trying to do things a little bit different when it comes to driver's license services and the DMV. And so, you know, I think while things are down, it's a great opportunity to take a look at the way operations have been done and try to find ways to improve and make it better so that when we do open, obviously there's going to be a flood of people showing up to get driver's license. And we want to be able to handle that, and we want to be able to do it in an efficient manner which serves the public. I've had the opportunity to grow up in a business family. I've operated my own businesses. It comes down to customer service in somewhere like that, and nothing makes people madder than having to get somewhere and wait for 3 or 4 hours to get something they need. I believe that there's ways that we can fix that and get people in, get people out, and save time for the citizens of Mississippi. In addition, one of the top priorities is going to be looking at ways to improve the Mississippi Crime Lab. There's been a delay in the turnover when it comes to the submission of evidence to the crime lab for analysis. That in turn has resulted in delays in trials and delays in the criminal justice system. We have to do better. And, you know, part of being a good administrator in my mind is looking at the way things are done and improving upon them. I can say this unequivocally. My intent is to get here, do a good job, leave the department better than I found it. And that's not saying anything about my predecessors not doing a good job. I think they've done an excellent job. I hope whoever follows me up will look at the job I've done and try to find ways to improve the agency. And that has to be a constant theme, and it has to be a constant desire for whoever is taking over in a leadership role. So those will be two of the areas of concern. Also, I want to work with the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation and Narcotics, as well as our state troopers, to help improve their safety and help them improve what it is that they do. As you all know, we recently had a judge in Meridian, Mississippi that was shot. Want to assist local law enforcement and to get into the bottom of that case and expand, in my mind, the services offered to local law enforcement through our department. And those are probably my top levels of concern right now. Much like Commissioner Kane mentioned, I'm going to get in there. We're going to have 90 days. I'm going to do an overall assessment and should be able to report back to all of you other areas of concerns and improvements that I hope to make over the next year.
Thank you.
I have a question for the judge, but for you first, Governor Reeves, why did you decide not to hire someone who had police officer background in any form of fashion of that nature?
Well, what I would tell you is we've got some fantastic people, both internally at the department and some fantastic people at local law enforcement agencies. I have communicated very regularly with them. I can't tell you how many sheriffs across the state were some of my biggest supporters during the campaign last year. We went to virtually every county and had support, and we've had a lot of conversations. And what I saw and what I'd seen in my 8 years as lieutenant governor, but what I saw in the selection process with the Department of Corrections is I was reminded by Sean's leadership skills. It's his leadership skills because the Department of Public Safety has a lot of different sub-agencies that do a lot of different things. He talked about the crime lab, for instance. One of the things that we have to fix and improve is at the crime lab because, and I think his experience as a prosecutor, as an assistant district attorney for a number of years, is going to help us understand what these local jurisdictions, these local DAs, these local ADAs, these local sheriffs, the frustration that they have had, and it's no one individual's particular fault. It's just reality, and so we've got to find a way to go out and improve the quality and the quantity of staffing at the crime lab. We've got to make sure that we have a leader there that is sensitive to the needs of our local elected officials. And so I think what you need more than anything else, whether it's at the Department of Corrections or it's at the Department of Public Safety or if it's at the mayor or at the city of Vicksburg, is you need a leader who has real leadership qualities. Sean Tyndall certainly has that.
Judge, how are you going to get buy-in if you've never been in the position that those highway patrolmen that you will work with have been in or been in the forefront of facing a criminal or some of the stuff that they go in? How are you going to make them get on the same page as you?
Well, I would initially point to my career as a prosecutor. I spent 5 years as an assistant DA in Harrison, Hancock, and Stone County. And I was also the lead assistant DA for Hancock and Stone County. As part of that job, I was required to work very closely with law enforcement throughout my career. First starting off with property crimes, working my way up to drug crimes, and working my way up past that to violent crimes and handling murders and rapes and everything. And all that entailed a close working relationship with law enforcement. After that, I became a city prosecutor for the city of Biloxi, again, working with law enforcement. And if you look back at my legislative career, I always worked well with law enforcement. I was recognized as the law enforcement senator or legislator of the year during one of my terms. And again, it was because of my willingness to sit down and work with and listen to the members of the law enforcement community. And I think anybody that knows me knows that I have a unique ability to sit down and talk to anybody and listen to anybody and value what they have to say. And they can see it in my eyes, and I think that's part of what's made me a good leader over the years. I grew up in a very humble background. As I mentioned, my grandfather was a sheriff's deputy in Stone County. My parents were separated when I was born. My mom was a single mother. I've been able to obtain a certain level of success through great mentors and hard work. And I think when it comes to working with the members of the Mississippi Highway Patrol, the Bureau of Investigation, the Bureau of Narcotics in particular, even though I don't have any true law enforcement background from their perspective, it's my willingness and hard work and my ability to hear their concerns and then be an advocate, if you will, for what they need when it comes to work with the legislature and the executive branch to say, hey, my guys are out there in the field putting their life on the line, they need new cars. They need better equipment. They need more training. They need these things. And I feel like with the relationship that I've built with the executive branch and the legislative branch, that I'll be able to serve their needs in a different way maybe than somebody that just came straight out of the law enforcement arena. And I'm reminded of something my father, who just passed away, used to tell me. He said, no deal's perfect, right? And I'm not perfect either, but I bring a lot of things to the table that I think will get their buy-in.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear to the men and women that wear the uniform in this state. I am absolutely convinced that not only will Sean have your back, I will always have your back, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that we are doing our part to put you in a position to best protect yourself, but also to protect the men and women of this great state.
Tim Reeves with Vicksburg Post has a question. Tim?
Governor, you take this question. Vicksburg's #1 industry is tourism. This week we got some good news that riverboat cruises will resume in late June, but the one area of tourism that remains to be reopened right now would be the sports parks in Mississippi, one of the biggest parks in the state, and last year a $12.4 million impact on the local economy. They have tournaments scheduled this weekend and next weekend. What is the update on the possibility of those tournaments being able to be played, and what's the schedule as far as announcing the ease restrictions for those type things?
Well, thank you for your question, and I know that the park there in Vicksburg that the mayor was a strong advocate for is one of the premier parks in Mississippi, which makes it one of the premier parks in America. What I would tell you is that the State Health Department, Dr. Dobbs and I are having very good conversations about ways in which we can get those back open in a safe, responsible way. We are very near, I think, putting out guidelines to make sure that we protect the individuals. As you know, we made a decision a week or so ago to allow for practices where we expanded the number of people from 10 to 20 in outdoor gatherings so that kids could get back on the field and be throwing and things such as that. I don't think it will be by this weekend, but I do think very, very soon we will have the opportunity to get back playing ball, not only for practice but also for tournaments. It's not going to look exactly the same. People probably are going to have to stay in their vehicles until it's game time, and people are probably not going to be able to gather in and around the stands, if you will. We're going to have to be in lawn chairs and be 6 feet apart, but we'll be able to get people back on the field so that, as we talked about yesterday, the mental health issues that have come from COVID-19 are so very challenging. And our kids, not only do our adults that work need some sense of normalcy, our kids need a sense of normalcy, and getting them back on the ball fields will help provide that. We've just got to make sure we're at a point where we can do it in a safe, responsible way. Bobby?
Going back to the audit real quick that was mentioned, Governor, did you know about that, and what were your thoughts? Did it give you any pause? And also, I was looking for a resume. I don't see one yet. When did you leave Angola, and under what circumstances?
Yeah, what I would tell you is that the search committee was aware of the accusations. I was personally aware of the accusations. We did extensive research, and it seemed like that once the politics were removed, that the accusations were basically dropped, and I have absolute full confidence in Burl Kane's ability to change the culture at the Mississippi Department of Corrections. I have the absolute confidence that he will do so in a way that will make all Mississippians proud. I have zero reservations about appointing him to lead the Department of Corrections.
How long ago were you at Angola?
I'm sorry, I can't understand. Repeat it again.
I'm sorry. Your tenure at Angola ended.
How long were you at Angola?
I was there 21 years.
And you left, just retired, or?
I retired.
We were wondering if you were,
Go ahead, Hannah.
I think she muted herself.
You need signs.
Hannah?
Hannah, are you there?
Governor Reeves?
Yes, go ahead.
We were wondering if you're aware yet of the Holly Springs church that was destroyed by a fire overnight. If you could comment on that. Also, the statewide stay-at-home order classifies church as essential businesses, while Holly Springs stay-at-home order classifies church as non-essential, and that church was given a citation because of that. Do you think this is a violation of the church members' rights, and will you be keeping track of this investigation?
I will absolutely be keeping track of this investigation. If in fact the order in the city of Holly Springs says that a church is non-essential and therefore they cannot open, then that order is in direct violation of the order that governs the state of Mississippi, and they should cease and desist said order. It is very clear that local municipalities can have guidelines that are more strict than the governor's guidelines, but they cannot have guidelines that directly conflict with what we have put in place. There is a reason that we name churches essential, and the reason for that is because I believe very strongly that government does not have the right to shut down churches. We have a freedom of religion in this country. We have a constitution that guarantees our right to practice our religion. So that's the reason I named them as essential and said no city, no local jurisdiction can shut down churches, period. Having said that, as you know, you've heard me say this many times, I personally got on the phone and called a number of pastors and encouraged them not to meet because it wasn't safe in person. Most every single one of those adhered to my request. I have the right to call a pastor man to man and say, will you please not meet? They have the right to say yes, or they have the right to say no. However, as you saw with my friend, the pastor from Natchez, when he came here, he was very clear. He said, if government's going to tell me I can't meet, then I'm going to meet. But if my governor asks me not to meet, then I will adhere to what he has asked me to do. And that's exactly how we've dealt with this. And no local jurisdiction can shut down churches. It's against their constitutional rights. And I think the case in Greenville, Mississippi, has proven that point.
Nick Judy with Jackson Free Press has a question. Nick? Nick?
Yes, this is a question for Burl Kane. You were named in a 2014 lawsuit alleging that you failed to act swiftly after an inmate reported repeated sexual assaults by an Angola guard. The advocate reports that a federal appeals court panel rejected dismissing you from that case just last year, saying that the inmate's testimony, quote, supports a finding that the wardens acted with deliberate indifference, quote, in dealing with the victim. Has that lawsuit been resolved since, and did that experience change anything about your leadership?
No, I don't think we were guilty of that. And so anyway, it doesn't change anything because we're going to protect the inmates and we're going to protect everybody from any sort of lawsuit or any sort of sexual assault or what have you. And we're going to do it to the best of our ability if we know it. And when we have the hint of it, we're going to take action. We're not going to allow that to happen.
Renee?
Joey Barnes with WCBI has a question. Joey?
Yes, this weekend in Columbus, the Magnolia Motor Speedway is opening up, and also coming up fairly soon is the Neshoba County Fair, and as the governor knows, there's not much social distancing on Founders Square. My question is, what are organizers of these larger scale events that are approaching, do they call the Department of Health for any guidance? Is any guidance provided to them to make any decisions about whether to open, not open, or have events?
Well, thank you for that question. What I would tell you is, and I'll let Dr. Dobbs address it as well, I've been to the Neshoba County Fair every year since 2003. I've spoken on Founders Square every year since 2003, and I enjoy the opportunity to get out and meet all of my friends and constituents there in Neshoba County and beyond. We are certainly looking at that. The fair is typically the last week in July. We are currently towards the last week of May, so we've got about 2 months. I know they've got to make a decision before then, but clearly most of the things that we are able to reopen, we have been able to do so by issuing guidelines that we encourage people to adhere to. And certainly when it comes to large events with a lot of people, we're going to continue to try to work with those individuals over there. So, Dr. Dobbs, I don't know if you want to mention.
Yeah, no, thank you, Governor. You know, it's an evolving situation, and certainly we've received, you know, requests for guidance from multiple areas and can use the foundation of the executive order going forward. And certainly we always want to make sure it's consistent with the current guidance under executive and public health orders that are out there. There are some safe ways to do things, and where we can find a safe way to do things, we'll try to do that. There have been some events kind of early on, like the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We worked with those guys and recommended against opening, and you know they thought it was a good idea too. There have been some other events that didn't comply that seemed like that they would be very risky. But every opportunity we have, if we can find a safer option, we will explore it. But when there are not safe options, we'll acknowledge that.
Right. Thank you. Renee?
Hunter Dawkins with the Gazebo Gazette has a question. Hunter?
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Governor Reeves. This question is for Judge Tyndall, if that would be all right. Your Honor, since you have had the experience of being in the legislative and the judicial branch, what about those two levels of state government do you think is going to prepare you for all the difficulties that are surrounding the Department of Safety, what you have?
Well, you know, first of all, being in the legislature, and I think one of the reasons, at least in my mind, I felt like a successful legislator was my ability to deal with folks from all over the state and try to bring folks together. And, you know, I think one of the benefits in particular of being in the Judd A committee and the controversial bills that we would handle was trying to find resolutions that worked for everybody. And then also working with members of the House. And so, you know, the great thing about the Mississippi legislature, and really any legislature, is the diverse backgrounds that come together. And as my good friend John Polk, Senator Polk would say, you know, it's making legislation is kind of like making sausage. You bring it all together and put it out there, and you end up with a good product. And so I think when dealing with the Department of Public Safety, obviously you have different divisions, and it's working for the common good of the department and bringing those divisions together to realize that all of us working together creates a better whole. And that's been a great experience for me coming from the legislative side. From the judicial side, I would say that sitting as a judge on the Court of Appeals, you have an opportunity to read cases throughout the entire state. And you can see that sometimes things are handled differently, perhaps on the coast than they are in the Delta, and good and bad on both sides. And so, you know, trying to bring the good and bad and get rid of the bad and let's accentuate the good and find a better product throughout the whole department. And that's been a real benefit of being on the court is really analyzing how things are done differently across our state and trying to find the best ways to get them done and move forward. You know, it's called the criminal justice system. And it's made up of the judicial branch, it's made up of the executive branch, and law enforcement plays a key role, as do judges, as do legislators, as does the governor, and then as does the Department of Corrections. And so it's my ability to work with all those different agencies and different groups that I think is going to be a great benefit to the agency. And I would remind the troopers and on all the employees there that I'm there to work for you, and we're going to work together, and we're going to do great things, and I'm excited about being there. Bobby?
Is it too early to say when the checks might start going out to those small businesses that qualify for them, and when the application process can begin for the grant
I
program?
think the only answer I can give you today is as soon as possible. Hugh with WLX?
Hugh?
Oh, yeah, hey, thank you, Governor. We had gotten word yesterday that Biloxi Mayor Fofo Gillich was meeting with you today on museum openings, and we were just confirming if that meeting happened and potential guidance you might have given for museum openings.
Well, as you know, Mayor Fofo is a great friend of mine. He's a super mayor for the city of Biloxi. I'm not going to discuss any personal meetings that we've had, but what I will tell you is that we are working with the State Department of Health, with our local elected officials, to get our museums back open in a safe, responsible way. We know that tourism is a critically important piece of Mississippi's economy, and I met with all of I had, I guess, a Zoom call with all the tourism directors from around the state within the last week or so. They do great work, and we have got to get our tourism space back open. It is something that I think will significantly help our total economy. As we know, approximately 250,000 Mississippians have filed for unemployment insurance in the last 8 weeks. We have approximately 200,000 that are still filing because they have to refile on a weekly basis. I believe as we get the gaming industry, the tourism industry back operating and functional, that we can reduce that number significantly. We can get our economy rolling again, and that is something that we as Mississippians sorely need as we move into the summer months. I want to thank everyone for being here today. I do have a 3:30 meeting that I've got to get to. We will be back here tomorrow at 2:30. I can't tell the people of Mississippi how proud I am of everyone that's sitting at this table, and particularly our two new team members, Commissioner Tyndall and Commissioner Burl Kane. I know that they're going to do tremendous work, and they're going to make Mississippi proud. Again, thank you all for being here. God bless and stay safe.